To je to. Ok, lep pozdrav vsem, ki ste nam se danes pridružili na 7. FVZvečeru, tokrat v gostovanju Katedre za fizioterapijo. Torej, moje ime je Deja Salamon in danes vas tudi pozdravljam v imenu alumni. Namen alumni FVZ srečanja je povezovanje in ohranjanje stikov z vami, diplomanti in študenti Fakultete za vede o zdravju. Tema današnjeg srečanja je delo v tujini ter izkušnje sa Erasmus plus programom. Zato z velikim veseljem napovem današnja gosta, in sicer mojega bivšega sošolca in prijatelja Marka Dombija ter diplomiranju fizioterapevtkinjo Tanjo Krevelj. Oba lepo pozdravljam še enkrat. Tudi današnja moderatorka je asistentka in študentka fizioterapije Nastja Prodekar-Lordan. Nastja, tudi tebi pozdrav. Vse udeležence seveda vabim kot vedno na aktivno sodelovanje, oziroma če imate kakršnokoli vprašanje, ga lahko zapišete v klepet ali dvignete virtualno roko. Naj povem še, da današnje srečanje bo v angleškem jeziku, tudi glede na temo in zaradi naših gostov, ki so tujci. Tako da želim vam pač, da nekaj pametnega tudi čujete in se naučite. Res vas vabim še enkrat na sodelovanje in Nastja, zdaj izvoli, beseda je tvoja.
Hvala, Deja. Lep pozdrav še z moje strani. Torej, na kratko potek današnjega srečanja. Jaz bom prvo predstavila na kratko naše dva udeleženca današnja in potem bomo šli kar na vprašanja. Torej, Marko Dombi je diplomiral iz fizioterapije na Fakulteti za zdravstvene študije Univerze na Reki. Nato pa se je v absolventskem letu odločil za Erasmus izmenjavo na Finskem. Zaradi zanimanja in navdušenja nad interdisciplinarnostjo, torej nad kombinacijo različnih znanosti, pa se je odločil tudi za magistrski študij biopodjetništva na Švedskem. Trenutno pa dela kot poslovni in klinični svetovalec v švedskem podjetju Melok, ki izdeluje pripomočke za fizioterapijo. Naša druga gostja pa je Tanja Krevelj, ona pa je dodiplomski študij fizioterapije končala na Univerzi v Ljubljani, nato pa je svojo službeno pot nadaljevala prvo v rehabilitacijskem centru Dom in pa kasneje še v različnih zdravstvenih domovih. Dodatno je opravila tudi specialna izobraževanja iz ortopedske medicine in manualne terapije. Že kot študentko jo je zanimalo tudi delo v tujini, zato se je odločila za Erasmus prakso na Finskem. Trenutno pa je zaposlena kot fizioterapevtka na Murray Colley Sports Clinic, v Edinburgu, kjer opravlja delo fizioterapevtske obravnave različnih mišično-skeletnih patologij s poudarkom na športnih poškodbah. Sočasno pa nadaljuje tudi magistrski študij mišično-skeletne fizioterapije na Univerzi v Brightonu. In prednost te univerze pa je, da poudarja predvsem praktično implementacijo najnovejših raziskav s področja fizioterapije in medicine. Kot je omenila že Deja, bomo zdaj nadaljevali v angleščini. Če bi imel kdorkoli kakšno vprašanje, da kaj ne bi razumel, seveda se lahko javi v chatu, bomo prevedli, drugače pa mislim, da ne bo težav. Kar se tiče vprašanj, lahko komot napišete v slovenščini, bom potem jaz prevedla oziroma za Tanjo so lahko vprašanja v slovenščini. Okay. So we will start with our first question. And the first question is, so you have both decided for the Erasmus exchange. Why have you decided for it? And because you both went to Finland, why have you decided for Finland? We can start with Tanja.
Okay, so I wanted a new experience. I wanted to see if they're doing stuff differently there. So I wanted to compare more or less. I wanted the best experience I could get. That's why I decided for Finland. Okay. And yeah, it was also, I mean, one of the things was also that it was promoted at my uni quite a lot. So yeah, it seemed like a good choice. There was a lot of support there. So we had like an international office at that uni. Yeah, everything was sorted out for me. So it was really, I mean, of course, there's a lot of paperwork always involved, but it was relatively easy to go through it with them. And it was a really incredible experience that I would recommend to anyone. So yeah, they do practical training differently there. So that was, I think, the best thing that I took from there. So you don't have, like here, I think it's more or less just them showing you stuff and then you're working stuff on your own. And it's like, okay, go and do your thing. And with them, it's more like you have 3 or 4 patients and they're with you. And then at the end of the session, they're constructively trying to make you better or challenge you. How could you be better? So I really think that's a good way of learning as well. So yeah.
Yes. And when you had patients, these were only patients with musculoskeletal disorders, or you also had some cardio patients or neuro patients?
So I wasn't into MSK at that point. So it was at that point I didn't know what exactly I would like to do still. So it was mostly neuromuscular and yeah, cardio as well. So I went to a hospital. I was working in a school. I was working in in another ward for like neuro patients. So mostly neurophysiotherapy at that point, child physiotherapy, so like Bobat or yeah, stuff like that mostly. So no MSK at that point. I sort of, yeah, it was a really good experience, but it sort of like made me realize that maybe neuro isn't for me.
Which is also good.
Yeah, and I think, like I said, the practical training was still amazing, and I still appreciate the way they've done stuff there. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. And in which city did you do the Erasmus in Finland?
I'm sorry?
In which city?
Tampere. So it's a smaller one, but it's a very studenty city. So every 5th person living there was a student. We had a huge student dorm. I'm not really like a country person, so I wanted to go into like a city that is as big as Ljubljana, for example. So I think it had everything. It had a lot of places to explore. You travel a lot when you're there anyway. So whenever you get like a week off, we went to travel to St. Petersburg. We went to Estonia and stuff like that, and just around Finland. So it was just, yeah, it was an amazing experience, not just from a professional point of view.
Okay, perfect. And for you, Marko?
Hello, good evening, everybody. So basically, I wanted to do like an exchange even before like my master's studies, but there wasn't too many like opportunities because Croatia wasn't in the EU. So by the time I was like finishing my master's studies, I always knew that I wanted to do something similar, as Tanja said, like just to experience something else, like see how it's done outside Croatia. What type of system do they use? Is it actually like physiotherapy in the north that good as people say it is? And also healthcare in general. So, but specifically Finland didn't happen because I like wanted to go there. It was more like one of their professor was coming for a congress to Opatija, very near Rijeka, where I was studying, and my professor from University Hospital of Lovran, she knew that professor and she knew that I wanted to go somewhere, so I just went for a kind of like a dinner with a couple of professors, where it was super easy and convenient to arrange Finland. Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
So kind of I took that chance, and right like 2 days after I graduated, handed in my master's thesis, I went to Finland.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you were not in the same city, right?
No, I wasn't in the same city. I was in an even smaller city on the west. And before I was going there, I actually Googled like the name of the place, and I was like, whoa, like, do I want to go there? But like once I went there and experienced, and I saw how well they organize like this international community of students, like exchange students, it was amazing.
Okay.
For such a small city to have such a good organizational structure and like getting students from all across the world, it was really a great experience.
Okay, so good choice.
Absolutely, in the end, yeah.
Okay, so after the exchange, you actually both decided to continue your master studies abroad. What is your experience with studying this master degree abroad? Could you list some advantages or maybe even disadvantages of studying abroad?
Do I start again? Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so for me, it wasn't, I said I'm never gonna do a master's degree because I'm not an academic. I'm not interested in academia. I'm a clinician, and I always wanted to be a clinician. So after uni, I felt like I don't know enough, and I was searching for new possibilities or new knowledge somewhere. So I think like everyone, it was first for like the weekend courses and stuff like that, and that didn't really give me enough. And then I started doing like the orthopedic medicine manual therapy, which sort of like scratched the itch a bit, but not really. And yeah, after that was done, that was almost like the biggest thing you could do, like practice wise in Slovenia, and it just didn't deliver. So I started checking if there are options abroad. And for me, the main thing is that it's not like theory and just, yeah, because I don't really want to get employed at a uni or somewhere like that. So it was so important for me to be theory and practice and have like that experience. And I don't regret it at all, because it's the best thing that happened to me professionally after Finland. So yeah, it was just, I mean, it's just the fact that they are really trying to see where the new research is and instantly asking themselves, how do you apply this? What are you going to do differently tomorrow at work? So, and I don't think that knowledge exists in Slovenia. So if you really, and I'm the kind of person that I'm not confident in what I do if I don't know that it's the best thing, or if I don't really have the knowledge to say, okay, I know, or I've read this. So yeah, so this is pretty much what I gained from there, and it changed my practice and it changed the way I work. Yeah, so I would definitely recommend it.
Okay, but when you were deciding for studying abroad, like, so you first checked all the possibilities that were on the internet?
Yeah,
or
it was so random. It was so random,
Okay.
but I was trying to find something that would combine like practice with theory. So I didn't want to do like a master's in physiotherapy. I wanted to read articles
Something
that would,
specific.
yeah, that would be
Okay.
in MSK. And at that point, I didn't know what MSK is. I was searching masters in manual therapy because that's what we use here. And yeah, abroad, this is more, yeah, getting out of fashion. But yeah, I found some of them, and then through that I found a web page of all of the stuff in the UK. I checked some of them in Australia, but because of COVID that got eliminated quite fast. And yeah, I pretty much just checked that, and then University of Brighton was more or less because they were so responsive and just so personal. They wanted an interview, and I was nervous. It was horrible. But I mean, she made it personal. She made it comfortable. She understood how you feel, and she was trying to get to the chase of things and just explain everything, the way they work, how they work. And yeah, I really like that. So for anyone that is looking for, yeah, sort of like practice advancements, that's one of the best things that happened to me. Yeah.
Okay, but you didn't have any like exam you had to pass to enter
It was an interview. So at that interview, I think she very quickly realized that I don't have the knowledge that they would like. With us, the knowledge is very biomechanical, and with them, they're sort of like in biopsychosocial model. And she very quickly realized that I don't have that. And that's why I'm doing it part-time. So she recommended doing it part-time, and because she was like, you need to apply what you learn, and you cannot do more than 2 courses or 2 subjects per year. So you can apply it, and then go forward. And I think at that point I was like, I mean, I was ready to do it full time. I was ready to commit, and I didn't like it very much. But now that I started, I realized just how intense it is. And you actually, now I'm thinking maybe I'm gonna take more time, you know. So yeah.
Okay, perfect. And Marko, how was it with you? You didn't stay with physiotherapy. You decided for something new, some new discipline.
Yeah, so but it's very much like combinable, and it builds on top of your like clinical knowledge as well. I'm going to explain later, but unlike Tanja, the most exciting parts of my studies, physiotherapy studies, were my degree projects. The first one I did in like new technologies in physiotherapy in shockwave, and the other one I did in high intensity laser for knee osteoarthritis. And I really got like into these like molecular mechanisms, like trying to understand also what is the technology behind like what we apply as physiotherapists. So once I graduated from my master's studies in physiotherapy and ending like a Finnish like exchange, I was like, okay, one of the plans is like maybe to try for a PhD, but I didn't want to do anything like you know, exercise or something like that. I really wanted to test like these like technologies that are applied in practice. And one of the options was UK, and I contacted the professors, one of the chief guys in that area, but there weren't any projects currently going on. So I remember waking up one day and like circling a couple of things that I'm really interested in, and those was like technology, research, and physiotherapy. So Karolinska studies happened like for the most part because of that, because it's kind of like bio-entrepreneurship. It combines product development, project management, and all these business type of courses with the knowledge that you have from life sciences. So the thing that I'm doing now is very much related to both physiotherapy and business part. And it's actually, I work as a clinical advisor, which is useful for the company's marketing, sales, product development, like testing the devices that are going to be later kind of like commercialized and so on. So that part, and then obviously like my bio-entrepreneurship studies I use in, you know, market analysis, market research, and so on. So by no means I left physiotherapy out. That knowledge helps me like deliver the message to our customers, which are physiotherapists.
Okay.
Yeah.
So are you also involved in the research work, or?
Yeah, not personally, but for example, as a clinical advisor, my responsibility in the company is clinical studies coordination and partnerships. So for example, we have a new device like a digital dynamometer, and this needs to be tested for validity, reliability, inter-intra, like and so on. So before launching the product, it's always good to have the studies, because customers, physios and chiropractors are very like demanding nowadays when it comes to like, you know, having the data to support your product. So in that sense, I started one with the University of Primorsko. It's Professor Nates that did like really good like 3 studies that are ongoing and yet to be published. So it's not like I'm doing research, but I'm very much in a close contact with researchers, which is great, really. Like you meet so many big names in physiotherapy just like that. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Just maybe, yeah, it's just a question because I honestly don't know. So the master's studies abroad, for example, in Sweden, they also last for 2 years. It's
I think that there are master studies that are 60 credits. I think those are 1 year, and then you have 2 years masters. So it depends on the topic and so on. I know that Karolinska, they have like masters in like healthcare economics, or I don't know, like I'm not sure 100%, but they have like 1 year masters like in nutrition science and so on, and also like 2 year master studies. But the biggest difference between like master studies in Croatia and in Sweden, I had, even though like Karolinska is one of the leading medical universities like globally, I didn't have feeling that I was kind of like under pressure. I always had time to focus really on the content of the course, and more kind of opportunity to reflect on your knowledge. Yeah, that would be like kind of the biggest difference between.
The difference.
Yeah.
Okay. And this is a question for both. So, are your studies free of charge, or you had to pay for them?
So I need to pay for it. So it's pretty much so that's the reason why I went there in 2020 before Brexit and during Corona. It was because I still got like a cheaper version of the course because I was EU at that point. And because it's part-time and I can do it for 6 years, I think, and I think I'm going to be doing it for free. It's £10,000 and you pay like, just for that year. So it's a bit more manageable. Because I work part-time as well, it's quite manageable. And it's still, relatively cheap if you see other prices in other countries. So yeah.
Okay. And in Sweden, how is it?
So the good thing in Sweden, if you come from the European Union, all the studies are mostly free. Like there are, if you are EU member country, then it's free. However, I have a couple of colleagues that come from Egypt, Indonesia, and those tuition fees are pretty high. And also, what I would recommend if you're planning to like come to Sweden, like living expenses are quite high. So I did come from Finland, so it was kind of easier to cover all the, like at least the first year. But one really good thing is that most of the Swedish residents, students, they get this CSN loan, and it's basically like 300 euros from the agency, and then like 700 euros of loan that it has a really small interest rate, and there's a lot of opportunities for student jobs as well here. So I think it's manageable, definitely.
You can finish the studies.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So after the Erasmus exchange, Tanja, you came back to Slovenia. But then you both returned abroad and you both decided to also work abroad. So what were like the biggest obstacles you encountered when you were searching for a job abroad or when you started to work abroad?
Yeah, so for me, I think I had a lot of problems just because of the time that I left last year during the lockdown, during the second lockdown. So I think it wasn't like the best timing. One thing that I needed to do like a lot of paperwork before that as well. So I think if you are deciding to do that, have a job and then do the paperwork during that job, because it takes a long time. So for me, it took 6 months just for Slovenian government and English government to figure out everything and for me to get accredited in the UK. And it's also a bit expensive at that point. So if you're going to like an EU country, you have EURES, which covers the expenses to some extent. So if you decide to do the papers, save your bills or receipts, because that can help you, and EURES can, So I had like a meeting with the consultant there, and she gave me a lot of tips at that point.
Okay.
So they were helpful. But yeah, it just takes a really long time. And then when you get here, the problem was that I needed to actually have a UK address to start searching for a job, because they wanted me to be in like a chartered society of physiotherapists, which is like Združenje fizioterapeutov Slovenije maybe, but they have like, they have just way more power over everything. You get insurance through them. So I needed basically a UK address. So I needed to move here first. I needed to go through the quarantine, and then I needed to search for a job during the second lockdown. So I think I was lucky because I got a job in like a month. And yeah, so I work in a private clinic right now. And yeah, it's been really, really good. But the reason why I think I managed to get a job, so here the job interviews are way different. So with us, it's more or less, I don't know whether they like you or not, or where you live, like how many expenses they're gonna pay. And when you get to the UK, it's more or less, okay, we're gonna ask you some questions, and then it's pretty much like, okay, if you have this and this patient, what would you do? They're asking you about red flags. They're asking you about, they want to know what your professional background is. And just, I had hands-on interviews, which are unheard of in Slovenia. So it's just, you need to be, it's almost like an exam. So I didn't have an exam to get into uni, but you definitely have exams to actually get a job. So yeah, and it was really helpful that I already started my master's, because with that I already understood their system a bit better. Also the course from Slovenia that I've done for 3 years, that helped massively as well. So yeah, it was, at the end, it was relatively easy. The month was stressful, but relatively fast. So yeah.
But you didn't know that the interview will look like that. So
no, so the
you
first
were like a bit shocked.
yeah. The first interview was a disaster, because
Okay.
I just didn't expect it. Because with us, I don't know, it's just so easy. Sometimes you're done in like 5 minutes. That interview took place for 45 minutes. So it was just like them trying to figure out like every single joint in the body and what do you know about it, and can you quote literature and stuff like that. So they really want to know how up to date you are with everything. So yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and then the second interview, I was like, okay, I pretty much knew what's gonna happen, so that helped definitely.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah, I think that's way different than in Slovenia. Okay, and how was in Sweden to get a job? Was the interview?
Yeah, I must say in the beginning that I haven't worked as a physiotherapist, but I know the process, what you need to do. I think that the biggest obstacle is obviously language, and the Scandinavian countries usually ask for C1 level of certificate, which is basically academic level. That's why I didn't even attempt doing Finnish, because it's like, you know, so yeah. But in Sweden, during my studies, like we had 1 year of practical work, like placements at different companies. And we could have suggested a company that we want to be in. And immediately when I saw that Melok existed, which like combined business and physiotherapy, and I just went for it. And prior to graduating, I already did like 3 projects at their place, you know, as a student. I was working already part-time as a student in Melok. And then after graduation, we just sat down and said like, yeah, like you're staying.
Okay.
And so there wasn't like an official interview. Yeah, so it really went smooth for me. I don't know, I'm not the best like learning example.
So I guess this engagement in student time really works off. I mean,
absolutely. I think that 70% of my class, there was like 40 of us, got the jobs based on the internships that they've done already during studies. You know, if you make a plan for these like 2 years, pick wisely placements, you can already, even if you don't get it in that company, you can build your CV quite well. Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, that would be easier for me as well, because now in my master's degree, I see people that got a job through their uni more or less, and I didn't have that. I mean, it's still possible, but I see, yeah, so it's those connections that sometimes miss. But yeah, if it's possible to do a master's abroad, I think that helps tremendously.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that networking is one big part of like, at least how it works here. You know, like the non-formal events, like social gatherings, like internships, volunteering work, and so on. It really makes a great difference in the end.
Yeah, like getting experience and also to get to know people.
Yeah.
Okay, so now you're both working abroad, and Marko, I know you're not working directly as a physiotherapist, but anyway, could you both kind of compare how is to be a physiotherapist, for example, in Slovenia or in Croatia, and how is to be in the UK or in Sweden?
Yeah, so I think that's the main thing that I like here. So in Slovenia, and when it comes to the main difference as well, in Slovenia I was working in public system, and in the UK I'm working in private. But the thing is, in the UK you have way more options. So and another thing, when it comes to their public system, so the NHS, they're really evidence-based. So when they realize that electrotherapy, TENS, for example, is not really that effective, they're like, you do not use TENS for low back pain. With us, we still use it, and it's encouraged. So pretty much they realized that by being evidence-based, you reduce the cost, and they started implementing that while we are staying in the 80s. And that's one of the main things. So the knowledge is being very appreciated here. You have
Tanja,
a lot of...
Tanja, this is being recorded.
It will go on YouTube, you know, to the public.
Yeah, so I mean, that's the first thing. You have a lot of chances for being promoted within the public system. Even though I'm private, you have bands. So you're a band 5 when you start. And then when you gain more knowledge, you're band 6. You gain more knowledge, you're a band 7. With us, you're a physiotherapist, and you're a physiotherapist for the rest of your life. There's no promotions, and there's no appreciation of quality, because it doesn't really matter, because all you need to do is put the TENS on. So yeah, you wouldn't need you would need a uni for that, more or less. And when it comes to the private system, so where I work, is just that you have so many options. So unlike Marko, I'm not a very business-oriented person. I really like physiotherapy, and that's something that I really enjoy. So in Slovenia, I felt like the only option I had was to open my own place. And with the knowledge that I had at that point, I didn't feel comfortable doing that. So it would have been, so much more to focus on. And here you pretty much get employed, and my boss is taking care of my schedule. So he's taking care of cancellations, he's taking care of promotion, and I have 1 hour for my patient, and I've got my schedule like known in advance. And that's the thing. So you have time for quality, and that's what's being appreciated here. I have time because of that for sort of like continuous professional development. I have time to really look into that, because I feel like that's what's being appreciated. So yeah, that's the main thing that I really appreciate here.
And you mentioned earlier this biopsychological,
biopsychosocial,
So you also have time, and I mean, you have 1 hour for a patient to also include these aspects in the treatment, or to discuss with the patient.
I mean, the problem is that with us, we just ignore it, and psychology is there whether you acknowledge it or not. So if someone doesn't move because he's afraid that his disc is gonna slip, then you need to first talk with him. Why is he afraid? Because if you're not gonna address that, he's not gonna move. And if he's not gonna move, probably it's not gonna be better. So very oftentimes, and I think in Slovenia, we just completely ignore it. I was just completely ignorant of that aspect of things. And then you start opening that box, and I think that's one of the big reasons why I have the results that I have. And I'm not saying that you don't have challenges, because you still do. No one has cracked low back pain yet. But it helps tremendously to implement that aspect. And in 20 minutes,
time for this.
it's hard to do that. So for me, I think 1 hour is sometimes too much. So I can shorten it if it's a follow-up appointment. I have that freedom. My boss is super flexible, and he just doesn't care. I mean, not that doesn't care, but he trusts me enough to be like, you do you, and that's fine. So you pretty much have all the time that you think you need, and that's very useful when you're starting out.
Okay, and I have one my personal question. So you said that you really follow the newest literature and the studies that are being published. So that, for example, if there's one study published, you just take their results, or for example, you wait for a review or meta-analysis that would show that several studies show.
So, and that's the thing that I think I didn't get from my uni at all. Like my undergrad, just ignored it completely. But here they're really big and we are doing that at my master's. So it's called clinical reasoning. And it's just about you seeing, like, if there is no meta-analysis, if there is no literature review, and you've got 2 shitty studies, well, they're still the best studies that you've got. So at the end, you're a clinician, you need to decide based on the literature that we've got. And that would be different 10 years ago, and that's different now. But it's about also, so that's one of the things that I've been doing in the past year, is trying to look at the study, trying to look at the literature and make up your own mind. And they give you that freedom. Like, I remember at my undergrad, it was like, okay, let's learn it this way for this professor, and let's learn it this way for this professor, because they disagree. And we never taught, like, where does this come from? And here it's like, you can argue with a professor here. And he's like, where did you read that? And you're discussing about it. And you're seeing that there is no black and white, and you can argue both sides of the table, and it's fine. But it's about trying to synthesize everything and try, just make sense of what you've got right now. So yeah.
That sounds very nice. And Marko, could you maybe compare somehow the work in Croatia, although maybe you do not work specifically as a physiotherapist, but what do you think are like the advantages or disadvantages compared to Croatia?
Well, I did work in a hospital in Croatia. I did my training there, and I prior to getting a national certificate for working as a physio, and I can compare it to Finland, because in Finland I got a really good overview of how it's done, and I've been in the public hospital, private musculoskeletal businesses, and so on. So I had a feeling that they are much more specialized, you know, like somebody that does manual therapy, he spends like 8 hours doing manual therapy, you know, and going all the way into that, like completing all the courses in manual therapy, like, and really focusing on that. So private sector, I think that it's a high level of specialization. Somebody that does manual will not take like neuro patient, and they feel the responsibility of not taking that, to referring to other physio that has higher knowledge in that aspect. So for that private sector, that was the biggest difference. And obviously I did like a central Seinäjoki hospital in Finland, and I was amazed like how everything was new. Like it was a huge hospital, newly built, with all the possible departments that you have. I saw that like occupational therapists and physiotherapists were working really like as a team together with the doctors. It was more like a chill like approach, like they were all together like at the breaks, like eating together, discussing, doing the teamwork. That was quite a difference then compared to like public institutions in Croatia, hospitals. One of the obvious things was like the use of technology, like where I first time in my professional life I've seen like robotic rehabilitation, like for the gait rehab in Finland. That was like science fiction to me.
Okay.
Like in a public like hospital, to have those type of resources to be able to pull those things off. And also what I was very surprised was like in hospital they have like a simulations of like kind of occupational therapy, like placing before letting the patient go from the hospital, they place him into this room that basically simulates the daily activity life conditions. So all these adjustments that they can do in those type of rooms, like, was just amazing to see. Yeah. For Sweden, I cannot say that I can compare because I haven't had like, but it seems to be very similar to Finnish.
But for example, in your company, what would you say are like really the advantages or maybe even disadvantages of working there?
This is one of the things why I really decide. I think that I'm going to stay here because literally, like, we're not a big company. We're not a big company, but the ability to express your opinion even as a young professional directly to your CEO or to your and him not making a huge deal out of it. Even if I criticize, like, for example, not criticize, but, you know, like, give a constructive feedback on something that I think should be changed, it will not be greeted as like, oh my gosh, you're like so young and arrogant, like, how dare you, you know? Like, quite contrary, he's gonna kind of like, wow, like, thank you so much for bringing this up. Like, I had no clue that this was happening, you know. So I see an immediate application of like my feedback that I give daily. I see the impact, I see the appreciation for your work. So it just altogether makes it super kind of tempting to go ahead with.
So I guess you both at the moment plan to stay abroad.
I would like to come back, but like I said, I don't see any other option than to open my own place. So I'm not there yet. But yeah, I think, like I said, the options are just limited here, whereas in abroad you can just you have everything. So yeah.
Okay, so I have just the last question left. What are your plans for the future besides staying abroad? Like, do you have any other plans, maybe, wishes?
Well, I can say that, like, after traveling so much and moving from place to place, I don't even have the energy to move, like, you know, once more. Because I kind of like started liking having a routine and knowing people, and like, you know, and for anything in life, you need to know the city, you need to have connections in order to kind of like advance. And like specifically this type of combination of like healthcare and business, I don't know if I would like use all my potentials if I went back, because the industry, like regarding like medical devices, I haven't even, maybe some companies appeared in the last 5 years, but I haven't seen that in Croatia outside of distributors that's anything is happening regarding innovation or like, you know, where I could, you know, jump in. So for now, I think that the plan for the next couple of years is definitely to stay where I'm right now.
And to continue working in Meluk.
Yes, exactly. Like, it's super interesting. It's a little bit of product development, testing, like innovation, also like talking to very big names in physiotherapy, meeting people, doing product demonstrations, trainings, and so on. So yeah, it's really, really nice right now. So no plans of changing.
Okay. And Tanja, for you, any plans?
Future, I actually wanted to just mention some sort of like drawbacks or some the negative side of it as well. So when I left Ljubljana, I was in a sort of like good place. So you've got so that's the thing, you've got your people around you. So besides work, I think it's a beautiful country to live in. I like hiking, I like climbing. We have amazing conditions for those things. It's one of the reasons why I moved to Edinburgh, because they have some hills as well. The weather is not the best, but yeah, so it's still, I would say, a beautiful country to live in. So I would maybe eventually consider coming back, but for the sort of like for the foreseeable future, I definitely will just finish this master. I will maybe think about extended scope physiotherapy. So that's another thing. Within the UK, you can be like first contact practitioner. So it's really more just trying to take GPs out of the, so osebni zdravnik, your personal doctor, GP, yeah. So they're trying to pretty much take them out of the picture, or they're trying to take some of the workload. So physios really have they can have a lot of responsibility. Extended scope is also interesting because you're using diagnostic ultrasound and stuff like that. So maybe that's something that I would consider doing in the future.
To continue.
Yeah, I mean, it's stressful. I don't know. I self-inflict those things on me, on myself. But I think definitely you need to keep improving. You need to continue with the education to stay on top of research anyway. So yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, so we came to an end of this discussion. Again, I would like to thank you both for your time and your interesting stories. I believe they were also interesting for our listeners. And now I would like to encourage maybe some guests if they have any questions. Or ima mogoče kdo kakšno vprašanje za naša dva gosta, lahko napišete v chat, lahko se tudi javite. Lahko je vprašanje vezano na izmenjavo, na Erasmus, na sam študij v tujini ali pa potem delo v tujini.
Come on, let's hear you. Let's see. Can somebody turn on camera so we know, like, a little? No. Okay.
Well, usually I'm in like my sweater or something like that, eating ice cream.
Okay.
I'm gonna write my email here, so if somebody like wants to follow up later,
Perfect.
remembers anything, add me on LinkedIn as well.
Evo, če bi koga zanimalo, karkoli vezano na Švedsko, na Melok, se komot javite, Marko tu. Dobro. Če ni nobenega vprašanja, potem res še enkrat hvala obema za vajen čas. In smo zaključili. Deja, še predajam besedo tebi.
Okay, I left my email as well.
Perfect.
Ok, evo zdaj se zahvaljujem še enkrat vsem udeležencem in prisotnim in veliko res hvala Tanji in Marku, da so pač vzeli si čas, da bi našim študentom nekaj več povedali o tem. Tako da hvala za sodelovanje.
Thank you
Hvala
for
in
listening
lep
and
večer.
thank you.
Yeah, thanks for the invitation.
Yeah, it was great. Great meeting you all. Good
Yeah.
luck.
Lep večer. Čau.
Bye.
Yep.
Videnje. Čau.
Pozdrav.
Ciao.